I'm getting you fired." Brandon Mitchell's threat was delivered with the casual cruelty of someone who'd never been told no. He stood on the dock, phone in hand, already scrolling through his contacts. "My father sits on the town council. One call, and you're done." Finished. Hal Peterson stood a few feet away, his blue windbreaker worn at the elbows, his clipboard held loosely in age-spotted hands. He didn't move, didn't argue, just stood there with that infuriating calm. "You embarrassed me," Brandon continued, his voice rising. "You told me I couldn't dock my yacht here, in front of everyone. You made me look like an idiot. You know what? I'm done being nice. You're going to lose this pathetic little job, and this harbor is going to get someone competent. Someone who understands that money and technology matter more than your outdated experience." He made air quotes around the word, sneering. Hal's face remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. "A memory. Oh, wait. I've lost more than you can imagine, son," Hal said quietly. "Then what will break you?" Brandon challenged, stepping closer, invading the old man's space. Hal looked past him, toward the open sea beyond the harbor mouth. "Nothing you could understand." At the other end of the dock, young fisherman Mason Torres was working on his boat. But now he stopped, hearing the confrontation. Mason had grown up here. He'd known Mr. Peterson his whole life. Quiet, kind man who came to the harbor every day, checked the boats, never bothered anyone. But watching this rich kid yell at him like this made Mason's blood boil. Mason pulled out his phone. His grandfather was an old Navy veteran. He'd taught him something. Some men are quiet because they have nothing to say. Some men are quiet because what they carry is too heavy. Mr. Peterson was the second kind. Brandon stepped even closer to Hal. "Listen, Grandpa. This harbor is changing. Modern yachts are coming. Wealthy clients. You're just an obstacle. You're not needed anymore." Hal's jaw tightened. His hands, gripping the clipboard, trembled slightly, not from anger, but from memory. "Needed," Hal whispered. "On June 6, 1944, I was very much needed." Brandon stopped. "What?" "My ship," Hal spoke louder, his eyes still distant. "LST 507. Landing ship, tank. 328 feet long. 4,000 tons. 163-man crew. And I was her captain." The dock had gone quiet. Mason lowered his phone. An old fisherman on a nearby boat cut his engine to listen. Brandon frowned. "LST? What is this? Did you watch a war movie?" "No." Hal shook his head, his eyes now focusing on Brandon, those gray eyes suddenly steel. "I lived it." Mason pulled out his phone again, this time to make a call. There was a number he knew, the Navy Veterans Association. His grandfather had given it to him. "If you ever need to help a veteran," he'd said. The phone rang twice, then a voice, old but clear, answered. "Veterans Association, Captain Reynolds speaking." "Sir," Mason spoke quickly, "my name is Mason Torres. I'm at a small harbor here, and there's an old man being harassed. Harold Peterson, 94 years old. Harbor master. Someone's treating him badly, and he mentioned LST 507. Sudden silence on the other end of the line. "Did you say LST 507? Reynolds' voice had changed, urgent, tight. "Yes, sir." "My God. Harold Peterson is still alive?" "Yes, sir." "But where are you?" Reynolds asked sharply. "Greystone Harbor. Oregon coast. Stay there. Don't move. Don't let anyone touch him. I'm making calls. 15 minutes. The line went dead. On the dock, Brandon was still mocking. Okay, war hero. I'm sure it was very exciting. But that's 1944. This is 2024. Technology's changed. Rules have changed. You've gotten old." Hal set down his clipboard, slowly, carefully. His hands were free now. And for the first time, truly the first time, he looked angry. "Technology has changed," Hal said, his voice low but carrying. "But the sea hasn't changed. The currents haven't changed. The storms haven't changed. And death never changes." Brandon stepped back, startled. June 6, 1944. Hal continued, his voice growing stronger now. 0630 hours. LST 507 approaching Omaha Beach. Wave 6 feet high. German artillery fire, MG-42 machine guns, mines. And I, at 22 years old, had to drive that ship until she grounded on sand. Because if I didn't, 200 men, 200 American soldiers, wouldn't make it onto that beach. Mason, now recording on his phone, listened. The other dock workers, fishermen, everyone had stopped. Hal Peterson, a man who'd been silent for 74 years, was speaking. We dropped the ramp, Hal said, his eyes wet. And they ran. 200 men. Some were 18 years old. Some were 40. All of them were terrified. All of them knew most wouldn't come back. And did they know? No. But they ran anyway. Brandon's face had gone pale. He wasn't talking anymore. 86, Hal whispered. 86 men didn't come back from that beach. I know their names. Every single one. Michael O'Brien, 19 years old, from Boston. Thomas Lee, 23, California. David Kowalski, 21, Chicago. I remember them, because I drove them to that beach. A tear rolled down Hal's cheek. The first time in 74 years. So when you tell me I'm outdated, Hal looked at Brandon. When you tell me I'm not needed, what do you know? What have you lost? Mason's phone rang. Captain Reynolds calling back. Mason, I'm patching you through to Admiral Thompson, Pacific Fleet Commander. Be ready. A click, then a deep, authoritative voice. This is Admiral Thompson. Are you Mason Torres? Why, yes, sir. Are you with Harold Peterson? Yes, sir. On the dock. Protect him. Don't let anyone touch him. We'll be there in 10 minutes. Sir, we'll? Yes, son. Me and 6 officers. By helicopter. The line went dead. Mason, in shock, looked at Hal. The old man was sitting on a bench now, head in his hands, shoulders shaking. Brandon still stood there, but was silent now, not knowing what to do. Then, from the distance, a sound came. Low, rhythmic. Helicopter rotors. The Navy helicopter landed at the harbor, in a small parking area, creating dust and wind waves. The door opened. First out was Admiral Thompson, uniform impeccable, for stars on each shoulder. Behind him, 6 more officers, all high-ranking, all serious-faced. Everyone on the dock froze. Brandon stood mouth open, in shock. Mason still held his phone. Admiral Thompson walked directly to Hal Peterson. The old man still sat on the bench, head down. The Admiral stopped, brought his heels together, and delivered the sharpest, most respectful salute. Captain Peterson, the Admiral said, his voice strong and clear. The honor is mine, sir. Hal looked up, surprised. Admiral. No, sir. Thompson shook his head. The respect is yours. You're a legend. The Admiral turned, looking at Brandon and the gathered crowd. If you'll permit me, he said, I want to tell you who Harold Peterson is. June 6, 1944. The Admiral began, his voice echoing across the harbor. D-Day? The largest military invasion in history. 150,000 Allied soldiers, 5 beaches. And success depended on these small ships, LSTs, landing ship, tank. The Admiral took a step, standing beside Hal. LST 507, under the command of Captain Harold Peterson. Omaha Beach, the deadliest beach. The Germans held the high ground. Every angle was covered. Every meter of sand was a target. The Admiral paused, took a breath. Captain Peterson drove his ship to exactly the right spot, opened the ramp, and 200 men went out. Under fire. Under death. And did they know? Yes. But Peterson made eye contact with each of them. Every single one. Run, he said. I got you here. Now run. The crowd was silent. Brandon's face was ashen. 86 men died. The Admiral continued. But 114 survived. And those 114 secured the beach, took the high ground, and the liberation of Europe began. The Admiral turned to Hal. Captain Peterson was awarded the Navy Cross, but he didn't accept it. I just did my job, he said, and he quietly retired. Never spoke about it. Never bragged. Just lived. The Admiral looked at Brandon. And you, he said, his voice ice, call them not needed. Brandon trembled. I didn't know. Of course you didn't, the Admiral said sharply. Because you didn't look. You saw an old man and assumed he was worthless. The next hours were a blur. The Admiral and his officers spoke with Hal, remembered old stories. Mason recorded it all. Brandon disappeared, went to his yacht, and never came back. But the story didn't end there. A week later, Greystone Harbor held a ceremony. Captain Harold Peterson Honor Day. Hundreds came. Veterans, families, students. And Brandon Mitchell sat in the front row, in a suit, respectfully. Admiral Thompson gave a speech. "This man," he said, "has been silent for a generation. But today, we hear his voice." Hal was invited to the stage. He walked slowly, Mason supporting him. He stood at the microphone. "I just did my job," he said simply. "But I never forgot them. 86 names. Every single day, I remember them." The crowd stood, applauded. Tears flowed. 3 months later, Harold Peterson, at 94, passed in his home, in his sleep. No pain. His funeral was held by the sea. Navy Honor Guard. Rifle salute. Bugle. Brandon Mitchell was there. He gave a speech. "Captain Peterson taught me 3 things," he said, voice breaking. "First, humility. Second, sacrifice. Third, that true heroes live quietly." The coffin was draped with the flag. On top, Hal's old captain's cap, and a small badge, LST 507. Admiral Thompson folded the flag, gave it to Mason. "For his family," he said. At the dock, a plaque was installed. Captain Harold Peterson 1930 to 2024 LST 507 Omaha Beach. D-Day landed 200 men. 114 survived. Never bragged. Never forgot. Every day, boats passing by salute that plaque. And they remember. True heroes are sometimes the quietest ones. Now it's your turn. This story of Captain Harold Peterson reminds us that the greatest acts of courage are often carried in silence for a lifetime. Who is the silent guardian in your life? Maybe it's a grandparent who never talked about the war, a neighbor who quietly served, a friend who carries invisible scars. Or maybe it's you, holding stories too heavy to tell. Tell us in the comments below. Share their name. Share what they carried. Share what they gave. Let's honor the silent captains who steered us through storms we never knew existed. And if this story moved you, hit that like button to honor Captain Peterson and every D-Day veteran. Subscribe to Echoes of Valor for more untold World War II stories. Share this with someone who needs to remember that heroes don't announce themselves. Tomorrow, we have another story from the greatest generation. One that will remind you that valor isn't loud, it echoes. Until then, remember Captain Peterson's words. "I just did my job, but I never forgot them." 86 names. Every single day.